So Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire tried to basically shoot down Thomas Massie's explanation of AIPAC babysitters on the Tucker Carlson podcast with this clip.
Many of the people that you see Congress people talking about, oh, we have an AIPAC handler. No, you don't. That's not what a handler is. A handler, typically speaking, is a person who works for an organization and then provides covert payments in some way in order to do corrupt things. The people that, for example, Thomas Massie is talking about, those are just constituents who actually agree with the cause of AIPAC and then lobby his office. That's not a handler. That's called a constituent. And it exists across the board. It turns out there are many people who are arranged with many different lobbying groups across America, from left to right, on causes ranging from the environmental to tax to foreign policy. Them calling off an office does not make them a quote-unquote handler.
Now, in this video, I'm going to do my classic breakdowns. Let me know with a thumbs up and a comment if you like these type of videos. And if this gets a good response, I'll get back to this style more. So deceitful and deceptive Ben is trying to say, oh, you know all these congressmen talking about having an AIPAC handler? You mean Thomas Massie on the Tucker Carlson podcast? Because this isn't a common thing that congressmen are talking about. Thomas Massie's like the only one. And I'm gonna let you listen to the full clip because nowhere did Thomas Massie call them a handler. Ben, he loves to use linguistics like he's so much smarter than everyone else. And he's like, you know, a handler technically means this. The technicality of handler means this. Well, unfortunately, Ben, I don't recall Thomas Massie using the word handler.
By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter.
Even if he did, it wouldn't take away anything from what he said. But that's like creating a straw man argument that doesn't exist to beat up that argument, which is very snake-like deceptive behavior. I expect nothing less from Ben Shapiro.
Many of the people that you see Congress people talking about, oh, we have an AIPAC handler. No, you don't. That's not what a handler is. A handler, typically speaking, is a person who works for an organization and then provides covert payments in some way.
It's like your babysitter.
Oh, we have an AIPAC handler. No, you don't. That's not what a handler is. The people that, for example, Thomas Massie is talking about, those are just constituents.
For AIPAC, they're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, you know, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
But anyway, here's the clip of Thomas Massie explaining.
They're not registered.
Is there any other Republican who has your views on this?
Well, I have Republicans who come to me on the floor and say, I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, you know, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had like.
That's absolutely crazy.
Now, him and Tucker go on to talk about it a little more.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, you know, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
Have you seen any other country do anything like this? Like
no.
Russia obviously determines the outcome of our elections. We keep hearing that. Does anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude. Like, it's the only country that does this, that has somebody that, like, uniformly, I guarantee there's some spreadsheet at AIPAC where you know, the AIPAC dude who's matched up with the congressman is there, and then all the congressman's votes on the issue. Oh, has the congressman been to Israel? They pay for trips for congressmen and their spouses to go to Israel. I'm not the only Republican who hasn't taken the AIPAC trip to Israel, but I'm probably one of a dozen that hasn't taken that trip, and the other ones just haven't got around to it.
And what Thomas Massie's saying here, where basically everybody in Congress has a babysitter for a foreign country that tells them what to do, and a lot of people are scared to go against them. This also happens in media. I know for a fact I once got invited on a trip to fly to that country and meet with their government. Of course, I turned it down because it seemed weird, and I'd rather just go to Israel as a spectator and a tourist than as like some political guy. It's not how I would want to approach a country. It seems strange. In hindsight, what's even more strange is the other two people that were, according to my friend, invited on the trip. One of them is now a congressperson and a politician. They weren't at the time. They were just an influencer. And the other one is an influencer who's just constantly posting some of the lowest level propaganda and Team Red cattle slop I've ever seen, has announced that he's eventually going to run for Congress. So fascinating stuff there. But anyway, it's interesting that Ben Shapiro wants to sweep that whole conversation under the rug. Like, all those Congress people don't know what they're talking about. It's not all those Congress people. It's Thomas Massie. And he absolutely does know what he's talking about. And he's not lying. But Ben's trying to basically cover it all up and be like, there's nothing strange about that. But there kind of is, though.
Oh, we have an AIPAC handler. No, you don't. That's not what a handler is. The people that, for example, Thomas Massie is talking about, those are just constituents who actually agree with the cause of AIPAC and then lobby his office. That's not a handler. That's called a constituent.
For AIPAC, they're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC.
Who actually agree with the cause of AIPAC and then lobby his office. That's not a handler. That's called a constituent. And it exists across the board. It turns out there are many people who are arranged with many different lobbying groups across America, from left to right, on causes ranging from...
Whether they're a constituent or not, the point still stands. Now let's dive into this topic a little bit deeper, because when it comes to Ben Shapiro covering for this topic, it's pretty much what he always does, but then he doesn't even have the honesty to tell you, yeah, I have a huge bias towards this topic. I have a religious and ethnic connection to this place, so of course I'm going to have a bias. There's nothing wrong with that. I understand it. Everyone doesn't have to agree. But of course, Ben has loyalty to Israel. I mean, it's obvious. He constantly gets upset at people who don't. But the weird part is Ben has tweeted this line: American Jews, whether ethnic or religious, are loyal to America, not Israel. Any dual loyalty supposition is anti-Semitism. So if you accuse anybody of Ben's race and or religion of having dual loyalty to Israel, meaning they like America and Israel, and in some cases Israel just as much or more, he'll say that that's anti-Semitism because he says everybody of his race and everybody of his religion, they just have to have loyalty, right? And if you suppose that they don't have loyalty to America, then that's anti-Semitism. It's like he's putting this broad net out for his people and then trying to gaslight you into thinking it's hate speech to notice that he's doing it. What's even weirder is almost that exact definition is part of the IHRA, anti-Semitism, essentially hate speech laws that are being passed all over the world. The same exact definition of anti-Semitism, it was also passed by Trump, who with the Republican Party received hundreds of millions of dollars from the Adelson family. DeSantis passed it, Huckabee Sanders passed it, Kemp passed it, Youngkin passed it. It's hard to find a Republican that doesn't pass these hate speech rules into some part of legislation or law in their state or country.
By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter. Has the congressman been to Israel? They pay for trips for congressmen and their spouses to go to Israel. I'm not the only Republican who hasn't taken the AIPAC trip to Israel, but I'm probably one of a dozen that hasn't taken that trip, and the other ones just haven't got around to it.
And one of those rules just so happens to be nearly exactly what Ben Shapiro tweeted, that you can't suppose that anybody of his ethnicity or religion has dual loyalty to America or Israel. He doesn't want you to think that or say that, although he constantly tells you that that's kind of how he thinks.
Ever wonder if one day you will have to flee the United States?
I mean, I think that every Jew throughout world history who has a brain and knows history has always wondered if a country that is not a Jewish state is going to eternally provide them security guarantees and full citizenship, of course. I mean, that's I think to think that that's why the existence of the state of Israel is the single greatest guarantor of my loyalty to the United States, frankly. right? Because Israel exists, that means the United States is going to be a more welcoming place for me because Israel is there as a backstop in case anything should go wrong.
It is what it is. I just don't understand why he wants to say it's hate speech to say that that's how he thinks. I mean, he admitted one time on a Nelk Boys podcast that the whole reason he even got involved in politics in America really had very little to do with America. It had to do with the fact that he noticed that his college was slandering Israel, the foreign country that Ben thinks it's anti-Semitism if you say anybody of his ethnicity has loyalty to. Take a watch.
Very quickly, I saw, kind of how I never really thought of myself as super political. I mean, I knew I was political and I was interested in politics. I liked history. I liked talking about political issues and current events. But it was really on campus that I was kind of faced with an alternative point of view that I really wanted to speak about. And so one of the first things that happened is I walked on campus, I picked up the UCLA student newspaper, the Daily Bruin, and there was an editorial comparing the then Prime Minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon, this is 2001, to Adolf Eichmann, as in like the facilitator of the Holocaust. And so I walked into the Daily Bruin offices and I said, "Can I write a counter to this?" I would have been 16 at the time. I said, "Can I write a counter to this?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, write a counter." So I wrote a counter. And then a couple of weeks later, they came to me and they said, "We have a perspective column from somebody, and you're the only person who's on the right that we've ever heard of. And so can you write the countervailing point of view?" So that turned into every couple of weeks, we would do like a point counterpoint column in the Daily Bruin.
Ben so feverishly defends Israel that he will constantly accuse people of blood libel for accusing Israel of doing anything. For example, Chef Jose Andres said that his 7 aid workers were targeted deliberately when they were killed by an IDF strike. Israel has said it was an accidental strike. So I guess Israel killed 7 aid workers, and Chef Jose Andres said, no, they did it intentionally. And they were like, no, it was a mistake, my bad. Even pro-Israel Jack Posobiec tweeted this story. He found no problem with it, reporting on it. Ben Shapiro, on the other hand, he said, World Central Kitchen does good work, but this is blood libel, unsupportable by logic or evidence. Also, Andres has been accusing Israel of targeting civilians in hospitals for months on Twitter and called for a ceasefire on October 13th, less than a week after October 7th. So I guess that's what the chef was saying, and then a couple weeks or months later, his people were murdered in a quote-unquote accidental strike that if you don't think was accidental, Ben Shapiro says is blood libel. He has a habit of constantly accusing people of blood libel. Well, I guess lucky for Ben that his definition of blood libel is also found in the IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism that's being passed all over the world and in dozen places in America by virtually all of Congress, the Republican Party, and a large majority of the Democratic Party, in which states that blood libel is now anti-Semitism by law, including that classic anti-Semitism trope that Jews killed Jesus. So do you got it? If you ever think that a foreign government did anything intentionally that Ben Shapiro doesn't think is intentional, then you've committed blood libel.
How interesting. How revealing. What we're actually watching in real time as a genocidal Jew-hating terror group laundered a lie about a Jewish massacre of innocents at a Baptist hospital is what we call a blood libel. That term dates back to the year 1144 when Jew-haters charged the Jews of Norwich, England, with ritually murdering a young boy named William for religious purposes. Frequently, such blood libels claim that Jews used Christian blood to bake Passover matzah. Similar blood libels were used for centuries, all the way through the time of the Nazis. They are still repeated very frequently in Arabic language media in the Middle East. The goal is obvious, to turn the Jews into monsters and thus to justify their murder. Blood libels, historically, have led to pogroms, to expulsions, to genocide targeted against Jews. Blood libels end in actual blood. Now, the same is true right here.
If you say that anybody of Ben's race or religion has loyalty to Israel, either equal or more loyalty to Israel, you've committed anti-Semitism. Those rules have been passed in hundreds of places around America because the politicians are controlled by the lobbyists. But of course, if you say that they're controlled by the lobbyists, that's also anti-Semitism. And of course, Ben thinks what Thomas Massie said is just ridiculous because, of course, Ben's going to say that. Why would he like the fact that one of the only congressmen who doesn't seem controlled is explaining that almost all of Congress is controlled? And I know I may get falsely accused of hate speech for showing you this, but this is kind of how Congress operates. Here's AIPAC tweeting, 11 more AIPAC-backed candidates advance to the general election. 195 winners so far this cycle, and 100% of AIPAC-endorsed Democrats have won their races. Being pro-Israel is good policy and good politics. Wow. 100% of Democrat candidates that they endorse won. That's incredible. I guess to be a Democrat, you don't even really have to believe in border security. You don't really even have to like America that much or want to secure our borders. But if you want to secure that foreign border, looks like you have an 100% accuracy rating of winning.
I have said to people when they ask me if this Capitol crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to our aid, and I don't even call it aid, our cooperation with Israel. That's fundamental to who we, fundamental.
This video was also run by AIPAC a couple years ago. If somebody critical of them made this video, it would be considered probably one of the most anti-Semitic things that anyone has ever seen. But since they made it themselves, it's basically just a brag saying it doesn't even really matter who wins, the president, the vice president, all the cabinet members for the last, couple decades. Pretty much every major figure in your political life has had a connection to that foreign country and loyalty.
Please welcome Senate Democratic Leader,
the Senate Republican Leader.
Please welcome Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Please welcome Secretary of State.
I'm honored to introduce the Vice President of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Please welcome back to the AIPAC stage the Prime Minister of Israel.
From day one, Israel found itself in a unique alliance.
The alliance between Israel and the United States of America.
In the United States, our support for Israel is bipartisan, and that is how it should stay.
Our strategic ally, our unbreakable friendship.
America is safer when we stand with Israel.
Because if you care about American security, you must care about Israel's security.
My friends,
America and Israel
need you more today
than ever before.
May God bless Israel.
And may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you.
By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter.
Okay, now let's get to Donald Trump, right? He's the outsider who pardoned a foreign spy from that country and sent the foreign spy home literally on his donor's jet. But of course, if you notice that, that's probably hate speech, even though that's literally what happened. The president who passed an executive order for the anti-Semitism hate speech laws that Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh just pretended to care about this year. Yeah, Trump actually passed those, so did DeSantis and the whole Republican Party. But anyway, let's look at the outsider Trump. Here's an article from Haaretz, which is an Israeli publication. It says, analysis, Trump is desperate for Miriam Adelson's cash. What will she expect in return? The former president and convicted felon is holding a fire sale on future presidential authority. Miriam Adelson wants to be his biggest donor, but in return, she wants Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank. So it's telling you right there in the article, Trump's going to get $100 million from a mega donor that him and the Republican Party have already got over $400 million from, and in return, he's going to do something for a foreign country. If this were Russia, they'd probably try to throw him out of office. If this were any other country, people would be freaking out. But with this country, it's just status quo politics. And in fact, you're hateful for simply noticing that it's even happening. One of the founders of hardcore pornography in America, Al Goldstein, you should go to his Wikipedia and look at his views on Christianity, because he really hated Christians and what he called WASPs, which were essentially white people. And he said he was purposely defiling them with pornography. Okay, what's that called? It's probably called anti-Semitism, because just simply noticing that he said that is probably on you, not on him for saying it. Okay, what's one of the biggest amateur pornography websites in America right now? It's something called OnlyFans. You probably heard of it. Imagine if I told you he pledged to give $11 million to AIPAC. It would almost sound like a hateful conspiracy theory, right? Except it's literally what's happening, which is just interesting, right?
And maybe they're not even aware of it, to be honest. I don't think a lot of these people are even aware that they're being used to push this agenda forward. So
is it possible? Do you think it's possible that it's not their faith dictating these decisions to pass basically blasphemy laws against Christianity, their own religion? Do you think it's possible that it's donor money, hundreds of millions of dollars of donors, in the same way that
if you want to, like, you can go into like, and hey, I'm a big conspiracy theory person.
Well, it's not conspiracy. Donor money is not a conspiracy.
You want to talk about like Jews running the world? Is that?
No,
I mean, that's kind of like
no. Well, this
but
is.
that's
But
kinda
here's
like
the thing. But here's the thing. It's if I say like I'm so glad you came on. If I say big pharma paid off both parties in order to, get politicians to support the pharmaceutical industry, you would be like, yeah, no, that's true. But the second that I say that donors are giving hundreds of millions of dollars to both parties, but the Republican Party to do these things, you go to this like conspiracy theory in your head, which is exactly what the left would do to you if you talked about the pharmaceutical lobbying money. They would, I made up a word. It's called anti-pharmetic, which means, you're suggesting that big pharma controls politicians. It's anti-pharmetic. It's,
right.
Anti-science.
So do you think that, so you think big donors are paying people to support Israel and to support to suppress free speech, anyone speaking out against Israel? Is that what you think is going on? Like, if you're going to be honest.
I think that donors pay politicians to influence politics. I don't think that. I know that. I don't even question that. I think that's 1,000% true. But if you point that out, that Trump and the GOP is getting hundreds of millions of dollars and then passing speech laws for a foreign country, the press smears you as anti-Semitic, and it's not the liberal press, it's the conservative press. If there was hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying money for really good food in America, then all our food would be great. But instead, our food quality is subpar, substandard, and most of the developed world is laughing at the shitty ingredients that Americans are shoving down their throat. But there's no lobby for that. If there's hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying money to secure our southern border would be secured like the hundreds of billions of dollars we send to Israel and Ukraine for them to secure their borders with our money. But our politicians can't even agree to give our own money to ourselves to secure our border. Even one of the biggest sellouts in Congress, Lindsey Graham, he once said, "We're not giving any more aid to Israel until we secure our southern border." Remember this clip?
The only thing that works with bad guys is to be strong. Our border is broken. Our policies don't work. It's a matter of time till a bunch of Americans get killed. I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border.
Well, of course he lied like they always do, because remember, in America, in order to be president or in Congress, your loyalty has to be somewhere else to secure your victory. Most likely, Thomas Massie gets away with it and a few others, but for the most part, it's extremely difficult to win in America if your loyalty isn't for another country. But no, caring about our border or our country is not something that has a huge lobby. Former MMA fighter Jake Shields said on Twitter, if AIPAC decided they wanted to stop illegal immigration, Congress would vote to fund a border wall tomorrow. He might be exaggerating, he might be sarcastic, he might be hateful, as a lot of people think, or he might be completely right about that. Just like if hundreds of millions of dollars flowed to both parties to do this stuff, both parties would be doing this stuff. But both parties are funding multiple foreign wars, in my view, against American interests, because that's where the money's flowing. But here's the thing, as the money's flowing to do these things, so are the hate speech laws that seem to be bipartisan to basically accuse people of being hateful for simply stating that it's even happening in this country. So not only is it happening, but now they're slowly trying to weed into legal definitions and into schools this definition of anti-Semitism. They're saying they're against it now, but I know that they knew in 2019 and they did everything they could to just try to make it seem like it was them versus the anti-Semites. It's us versus the bad guys in order to basically gatekeep those hate speech laws. So when Thomas Massie speaks the truth of how the U.S. Congress works, when he's one of the only people to vote for American interests almost every time, and leading conservative media pundits come out and say, oh, no, technically now, it's like, yes. And I would go as far as to say, most Republican media is controlled opposition. They feed you what you want to hear, anti-LGBTQ stuff and getting it out of the schools, or, how extreme the left's being and the inflation that they want to fix, even though they printed the money to destroy it with Biden and the Democrats and Pelosi and Schumer. But they give you all this social stuff that you want to hear, all this conservatism, like, yeah, that's awesome. That's what we want, right? But then they twist it with this controlled version of what it means to be America first and conservative. And they all do it at once, so nobody even notices. And then when you notice that they're doing it and you accurately call it out, they all try to sweep it under the rug, smear your character, or just constantly lie about you and make you look crazy and mean, even though you're calmly and politely just speaking the truth about our country. It's not hate speech. Most Republican media is Zionist media, and I would say Zionist first, even above American interests. The Republican Party is a Zionist first party. I would say way ahead of American interests. All you have to look is that Lindsey Graham, we're not going to fund Israel until we get a border wall. That's what he said, because that would be America first. Hey, we're Zionist and we're pro-Israel and we support them and we're going to fight their wars or whatever, but we need to focus on ourselves first. That would be America first, Zionism second, right?
It's a matter of time till a bunch of Americans get killed. I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border.
That's not what they did. They said they were going to do that, America first, and then they put America second or third or last on the back burner like they always do. That's the Republican Party. That's Republican media. So when people like Thomas Massie or Tucker Carlson come out and give you a few gems, they quickly try to shut it down. It's not working anymore due to the internet and people figuring this stuff out. But I'm going to end the video like this. Everybody in Israel has the right to want to put their country first. Everybody in America has the right to want to put America first. And because there's no lobby for good food, because there's no lobby for border security, and because there's no lobby for hundreds of things that would make America better, which is why America's going in the wrong direction, because our politicians don't seem to give a shit, this is one of the main reasons that they don't give a shit, because they're being paid to do other stuff. One of the main ones seems to be pro-Israel. 100% Democrats win if they're that. Yet, how many of those Democrats want to secure our border? Probably not many of them. In the Republican Party, they can't get anything done because they're taking hundreds of millions of dollars from donors who want other stuff done. But then there's laws being passed that you can't even say the people that want other stuff for other countries done first and done most, you can't even say that they like that country, because now it's considered hate speech to even say that that's their priorities, which it is. And until Republicans figure this stuff out, they're just as useless as Mitt Romney or John McCain. They just love to convince themselves that they're so much better than the left. The left is egotistical and they think they're so much smarter than the right. The right's egotistical. They think they're so much smarter than the left. And to be honest, I'm not playing the victim, because we're not victims. If people are this dumb, you're going to get dumb results. And I think it's important to show support for congressmen like Thomas Massie, who are anomalies in the U.S. Congress. And Massie is who MAGA Republicans and libertarian Republicans pretend to be. Most of them are not that. They have a price, or they have a limit, or they have a line, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily for American interest. Let me know what you think in the comments. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America, and God bless the world. And God bless all of the young men who are going to have to go fight these multiple wars for foreign countries, because that's where our elites in both sides are trying to take us. And I'm sorry, but Republicans are fake opposition. So this idea that just wait until they win and things will change, it won't. I hope it does. But the truth is this, and I'll leave on this note. Everybody wants America to be better, and they think they deserve the country that they want because they want it. It's the mindset of a child. Embarrassing. You don't deserve the country you want. You don't. We don't. Republicans don't. MAGA doesn't. Just because you wear red hats and you cheer when Trump comes on the TV, it doesn't mean you deserve the country that you want. You'll get the country that you deserve, and you'll get the politicians that you deserve when you figure out the game that's being played. If you don't, you're just a useless idiot with a different colored hat. You might be more right about certain social issues. You might be right about some of the foreign wars, but you're never going to fully understand why things turn out the way they do. So it's just going to be Charlie Brown on loop forever, which is what it's been for the last 40 years. So not playing the victim. Life is good. God is great. But there's not much that really inspires me to want to put this much work in on videos anymore, because once you figure out some of the stuff in this video, you realize that 95% of Republican media is not only controlled opposition and piss poor, half-assed, half-truth controlled opposition, just sheep herding you into the wrong direction, but they're getting so sloppy and stupid with it that it's hard for me to believe that so many people are still going along with it. I know every day people are waking up, but it's just so obvious at this point. How long are we going to run like hamsters on a wheel with some WWE Marvel plot? I've been done with it for years. This is my analysis on this. God bless Ben Shapiro. God bless Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie, I'm sure, is being honest. Ben Shapiro, as always, is being a little sneaky. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. And do you remember when Ben Shapiro was present when Elon Musk was basically on an apology tour? That's kind of interesting, right? A conservative American podcaster in a foreign country with the richest guy in the world basically surrounding him with his group to show the richest guy in the world why he should be sorry for what he just said. I think he said something about he noticed that certain Jewish organizations were pushing anti-white stuff, and then a couple weeks later he's in a foreign country with Ben Shapiro and other people of Ben Shapiro's group. It's fascinating stuff. But anyway, have a good day. God bless you guys. I'll see you soon. Hey, if you liked my news analysis and you wanted to support me while picking up something cool and affordable for yourself, check out dreamrare.com, where the white hats, God bless hats, are almost completely sold out, as well as the Big Farmer, Not Big Pharma merch and other shirts, sweatshirts, beanies, long sleeves, and of course, t-shirts for the summer. Check out dreamrare.com. Pick yourself up something soon. And patreon.com/raretalk, where I have over 10 secret podcasts that you've never heard. And for those at patreon.com/raretalk, I have a new one coming this week, I promise. Gotcha, guys. God bless you. Have a good one.